how you got started calling out people on the internet.
Yeah, I maybe won't use this. I don't know. Can everybody hear me okay if I just talk like this? Back? No, use the mic? Alright. It's just weird hearing your voice on a microphone. It's weird also hearing your voice on a television. So. I'm probably the most unlikely content creator. I was telling them earlier, dragged kicking and screaming onto every new social media platform my entire life. It's always been a significant other who's like, you got to get on this new one, and I'm like, I really don't, I promise. And I'd still be the only person on MySpace, all by my lonesome, sitting there, remembering how to code probably. And so my wife had gotten TikTok, and she was saving all these videos to show me because she couldn't send them to me because I didn't have one. And finally she got sick of me taking her phone for a half hour to scroll through all these videos she wanted to show me that she'd already seen. So she put it on my phone, and she's like, there, now you can just watch the ones that I can send you. That's all you have to use it for. She's like, but if you ever feel like not arguing with people in Facebook comments anymore, you could maybe just make a video about it, and it would be less of a waste of your time and mental health. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's a horrible idea. And so flash forward a little while, and we're sitting at the bar here, Applebee's in Cambridge, and the We ID sign on the wall just gave me a moment, because I looked at it and I realized that in a couple months from that moment, people who weren't alive for 9/11 were going to be able to sit there at the bar and drink with me. And it was, as you start to get older, you have one of those moments where you just suddenly feel ancient, and that was one of those moments for me. And I'm like, I need to just share this experience with somebody, because I need to commiserate with other aging millennials. And I put that out there, and the opening line was just, what makes you feel fucking ancient? And that line got stitched. If not familiar with TikTok, that's what that was. I took somebody else's video and stitched onto it. Tens of thousands of people stitched that video, and it just blew up overnight. And I was like, okay, this is an interesting thing, and now suddenly I have people paying attention to what I'm saying on the internet. And I'm not going to do politics, because I live out here, in a very red area, and it's awkward, and I have a problem keeping my mouth shut, though. And so one of those people who stitches, like, my problem is, what makes me feel ancient is, kids today just don't want to work. And I'm like, oh, honey. And yeah, so that it wasn't political for like a single video. So that's how it kind of got started, and it wasn't planned. And I'll just keep doing this until people stop listening to me, and they haven't stopped listening yet. So I'm still kind of riding that wave, and that was 3 years ago. So we'll see where it goes.
So when you make your videos, where do you do your research? What videos do you choose to talk about? What are the talking points that you're like, okay, this is the one that I'm going to find important, versus there's so many things going on? How do you sort of focus on the ones you want to do?
Yeah, it depends a lot. If one particular video that is really toxic, like that one that you just saw, that had gotten 500,000 or more views. It was getting a lot of traction, obviously, about something really important that was going on, which was this big bogus bill that they had just passed, and how that was going to negatively impact so many people. And this is kind of that talking point of, the lazy welfare queen is the people who are going to suffer. And it's like, no, dumbass, you're going to suffer. It's your grandma, your Mima that's going to lose her health care, It's your kids that are going to lose funding for their school. It's your roads and bridges that are going to fall apart because you guys don't make enough tax revenue to keep them put together. And so, in those situations, it's something like that. I try to do it with some sort of intent or meaning. I spent a lot of time before the election focusing on current candidates who are running to try to I do a political figure series every Wednesday. And I tried focusing for that time on people who are running right now, kind of what their political record was, to help inform people. And it was, all for naught, it seems, apparently, but I tried. And then some days it's just who pissed me off, and that's that's how it goes. So a lot of historical stuff, especially prior to every day being an existential crisis, and I could kind of go back. I love history, and a lot of it wasn't even political. I did a lot of Minnesota history, I have a whole mini series called Everybody Hates Reagan to just talk about how Reagan ruined the world, and so it's whatever I kind of feel like talking about, and I try to tie some sort of important, relevant topic somebody can take something meaningful away from if I can.
Now, how did you end up starting the podcast? Did that come kind of after all the TikTok stuff, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so I don't listen to podcasts. I don't consume I don't even really watch social media. Like I'm again the most unlikely content creator. And people in the comments were like, you need to start a podcast. You need to do a podcast. I'm like, I am not. I can barely keep up with this. I'm not doing a podcast. I don't know where I begin with a podcast because I don't listen to podcasts. And once again, my wife. We have a couple friends that we would go out and double date type things, and we would start drinking and talking politics, and they would go sit someplace else. And so eventually I was like, all right, Taylor, if you want to do this, you're going to have to do most of the work on like organizing the podcast and figuring out what that is, because he listens to podcasts. I'm like, you do all of that. I have at least enough connections now where I can start bringing in some guests that people may want to hear from, and we can have these conversations, you know, where we're not annoying the hell out of our wives. And so he agreed to do that, and that's kind of how that got started. And so yeah, that's gone for a year and a half now, coming up on 2 years actually, I think in October. So that's been really cool. We've had some really incredible guests on there. Peggy Flanagan, we had Jen Schultz on before the last election. Ken Casey, a few big social media creators that, you know, I've been really big fans of, and it's kind of weird to start doing this and kind of some of the people that you look up to, and you know, it's like, oh, they're internet famous type people that you really respect the work you're doing, and then suddenly it's like, this person's technically a peer with me now, and it's that imposter syndrome sets in. But having some of them on has been a really cool experience. So yeah, we're just keeping rolling with that too.
I was like, I saw the Ken Casey one. I was like, yeah. But I'm old, so you. So how do you deal like with the negative comments and people like bashing you? Do you get threats and stuff? And kind of how do you take that all in and deal with it?
Yeah. So it doesn't bother me. I'm really full of myself, and so like it's really hard to shake my self-confidence from losers on the internet. And a lot of that has provided me a lot of my content. I used to kind of welcome it because it would give me something I could address that's just really easy, lazy content. Because I post a video every single day, and I can't put in the same type of research and editing and planning and writing consistently every single day. So sometimes I need to do lazy videos where I just make a person feel bad for existing, and so they give me that. So I appreciate it, but I know that a lot of people struggle with that. And the thing that I like to remind people is that these people are projecting every single thing. If you've noticed with conservative trolls in real life, every accusation they make is a confession, right? I mean, every single time. You look at Donald Trump calling every single person a pedophile or a predator because they're trans or they're gay or they're... It's always that, you know, they talk about family values and they crash Grindr at the RNC. So any single thing that they're going to be accusing you of, you just got to remember that this is something that they're projecting onto you because they're really insecure about it with themselves, and it's really easy to turn that back around because now they've just told you what they're insecure about, and you can bring that back on them. And so that's how I deal with it. I enjoy that. I do get threats, and for like a while, because again, I didn't plan on doing this, so I didn't have any thoughts about like maybe I should sort of protect my identity and where I live and make it difficult to figure out exactly who I am until it was far too late. And I just kind of rolled with it for a while. I'm like, I guess it'll be what it'll be if I get myself in some sort of uncomfortable situation with somebody who's not a big fan of me. But I realized after a while that these people are all cowards. And I mean that genuinely. I have lots of people who send me hate messages and stuff online. And I go out in the world and people recognize me on a fairly regular basis. And I realized one day that the number of people who recognize me, who come up and say, I love your content, I like what you're doing, thank you, can I get a picture, that sort of stuff. There has to be a somewhat similar number of people who absolutely despise me, who have seen me in public, and not one of them has ever come up and said anything. And so I'm like, if they're not doing that, I really probably don't have much to worry about as far as threat goes. And obviously, we saw with Senator Hoffman and everything that those people do exist, and it's a very real threat for all of us in this day and age. But you can't really live your life worrying about those anomalies and outliers, and the vast majority of them are absolutely cowards, and it's really easy to talk big, behind a keyboard. So.
Well, one of my questions I was going to ask is if you get recognized in the community, since we are more rural and definitely more red, do people, they see it's been positive, are you surprised by the amount of people who come up and say they like your content? Because the joke always is, Dan makes the joke, he's like, everyone thinks that they're secretly blue and they're the only blue person, and he's like, then I go to your neighbor's house and to try to knock on their door, and they're saying the same thing. So did you find that there were more people? Were you surprised at the number of people?
Yeah, actually, it's been some of the weirdest places that I have been recognized by people who are clearly, I don't want to say big fans, but obviously they watch my content, they enjoy what I do, and so they, I'm assuming, agree politically with me. And the Brainerd Nationals, I've had people come up to me there, and that was a place I just never expected. I mean, there's Trump, merchandise booths there and Trump flags. And I'm just sunglasses off, because that's how people recognize me. Man, just don't look at me, And no, people come up and shake my hand and thank you so much for what you're doing. Out in Alexandria in a little cafe one morning, that was one of the weirdest things.
I've been there, yeah.
Yeah, but it was this little cafe, and they heard my voice from around the corner, and we were with my wife's aunt and uncle. And they didn't even know that I did all of this. And then this one person comes up and they're like, "Are you off Joaquin?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're just so confused, my aunt and uncle, or aunt and uncle-in-law, I suppose. And they're like, "My mom is just a really huge fan, and she's right around the corner." And I've never seen anybody it was the most celebrity moment I think I've ever had of somebody who she couldn't even talk that I was there. I'm like, I just talk shit on the internet. I'm not that special, I promise. And so, but again, it's a weird place, a more rural red area. So yeah, I get that. I mean, obviously, I've spoke at the No Kings rally and the Good Trouble rally and stuff, and people come out, and I expect people to recognize me there because that's more our demographic. But it's the people in those areas that have been. It's probably what's kept me going and been the most satisfying and fulfilling, because I know that I've made the biggest difference in people who live out here and they think that they're all alone, and nobody who looks like us has agrees with them, and that is a very lonely, isolating feeling. And I think all of us kind of who live out here probably understand that and feel that a little bit. And so seeing somebody from a community like yours, or even your own community, who's speaking on the things that you believe in, makes you feel less alone and more empowered to be involved. And that's really been, because I've had a ton of people reach out to me and tell me that that's been impactful to them.
Yeah.
And it's not just what I'm doing. We were talking about this earlier. When we do the parades, when people march in the parades, when you have the booth at the county fair, the number of people who have come up and talked to us when I've done those kinds of things, it's just thank you for being a presence, because it shows me that I'm represented, I don't feel so alone. And so you guys are doing the same thing when you guys participate in local rural communities. So it's incredible that so many people are here, especially in Isanti County, and participate in that kind of stuff.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
I have one last question, and then I'm going to open it up. What is your favorite kind of pie?
My favorite kind of pie? Ooh, it's going to sound just cliche and boring, but I do love a good apple, or a French silk.
Okay.
I mean,
classic Baker Square.
Yeah, yep, Baker Square, yeah.
Perfect. Does anybody have any questions for Jordan while he's here? Yeah.
I do. First of all, just thank you for coming out here. Honestly, I wasn't aware of who you were prior to this, but I followed you on Blue Sky before, and I'm really happy I did. I love what you're saying. But I was wondering, so you said that you're the most unlikely creator, and just from, I'm in marketing, how much of that has evolved now where do you post videos out of like a desire to post versus like an obligation? And like how do you weigh that, especially with like politically, because I'd assume, especially with putting out a video a day, obviously there's so much we can pick from that probably at times gets a little challenging to, you know, stay on top of that and continue to churn out stuff that, you know, you try to have be relevant and foster engagement too.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has become very much a job all around, in the sense of it's work to do, and I do get a little bit of income from it, and it takes a lot of time. So it's a mix. This is really, really rewarding work, but a lot of times it is obligation, especially like the videos that are more intensive, like the political figure videos. Those take me, I get 8 to 10 hours into those if you include research and editing and writing and all of that for, you know, an 8 to 10 minute video. And a lot of days I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to fucking do this today. In fact, today I was going to do, so the one that'll come out tomorrow is going to be on Thomas Fugate, the like 12-year-old that's running the Department of Homeland Security thing, who, you know, his most experience is asking if you want paper or plastic. And I wasn't going to do him. I was going to do Stephen Miller, but I looked up Stephen Miller. I always start on Wikipedia, and because it's a really good launch point. We were going to talk about information, misinformation, disinformation stuff. If you're ever looking to just do research on a specific topic, I know especially if you're a millennial, you're told never to use Wikipedia for anything, and that was true at a certain point, but it is a really good launch point because they do have all their sources cited, and you can work backwards down whatever rabbit hole you want to go to from there, and it's really well organized. So highly recommend starting there. That's where I always start for my information. But I jumped on there, and Stephen Miller's page is like 3 chapters long, and I'm like, I cannot torture myself reading this many words about Stephen Miller today. And so I was like, I need to find somebody with slightly less experience. So I went to the complete opposite end, and I was like, they don't even have his birthday on his Wikipedia page. And I was like, perfect, I've got nothing I need to read. And so like occasionally, you know, it gets to be that. And it does get really difficult because I get a lot of people who reach out. A lot of my content comes to me because people send me videos, they send me messages about the stuff that they find important that's happening right now that they want to hear talked about. And I really do my best to try to address things that people feel important, but I can't do it all, and a lot of times it's picking and prioritizing what I have the bandwidth for and or what I think is you know, the most impactful to talk about at the time. And unfortunately, the dirty truth of it is that it has to be somewhat about views and engagement, right? And a lot of people get frustrated because if you won't pick up a topic because it's not going to get the engagement. And like, I understand that it feels kind of cheap, or you're doing it for attention, for clout, for views, but it's like, if nobody hears the message you're putting out there, then what's the point in putting it out there? And again, I only have so much bandwidth, so many hours in the day, so much time to do this. I have to pick something that'll at least get some traction and people will see. And unfortunately, some things just fall by the wayside, even though they are incredibly important and need to be talked about.
Does anybody else have any questions?
What things are trending and what things aren't?
Well, the Epstein files have stayed front and center, and that's a good thing. We need to keep that up there. I think it's really important just because if you look back at how conservatives click with topics, it needs to be catchy and they can't like think about it a lot, and that's what struggles with us on the left. Is like, we understand that the world's a great place and nuance is a word that exists, and they don't, you know, everything's black and white, and if it doesn't fit on a bumper sticker, it doesn't fit in their brain. And so they come and they have, you know, Benghazi and Hunter's laptop and Hillary's emails, and you can ask them what those things are about, they'll never be able to fucking tell you, but they're like, these words equal bad. And the Epstein files have been that for them for a super long time, right? Trump ran on releasing them, and so they've hung on to this. So they already have that association of Epstein files equals bad, and now it's turned around on them, and they're trying to weasel their way out of it. And so keeping that front and center has been really important. That's a thing that's trending. And I think that absolutely everything you engage with them, whatever they want to bring up, irrelevant. Just bring it right back to that and keep it on that all the time. Otherwise, the tax cut, big beautiful bill thing is still front and center. People are starting to feel some of the repercussions of that, and it's going to continue to get worse. And making sure that they don't forget that that's where it came from, because Republicans are really good about writing stuff with enough delay to blame it on other people in the future, so you don't feel the effects right away. So that's kind of what's trending right now. And now obviously with Trump trying to federalize DC is a huge relevant to day one, which is horrifying that that's happening. And so just keeping eyes on that. And unfortunately, I don't have any real good calls to action for that, but making sure that people kind of understand the gravity of what that is.
Does anybody else have any questions? Oh.
Kirk, I mean, he drives me crazy.
Sorry, can you say
and
that
he
again?
must be about your age.
Are you talking about Charlie Kirk?
Oh, Kirk, the guy who bills himself as the young college Republican who quit college after his
Charlie
first
Kirk.
year.
Yeah.
Has to be 50.
Funny story. Yeah, I actually went to one of his events in Texas at College Station. And Charlie Kirk is a coward. He won't talk to anybody who has, a fully developed frontal lobe. That's why he hangs around colleges that, Republicans love children. Yeah, he comes up, and it's a really hard thing. I think the left has done a bad job of engaging those demographics, and I do think that more people need to, more people on the left, more organizations on the left need to start engaging college kids. I don't think that engaging with them directly is maybe the best course of action at this point, because then we just end up platforming them. And I don't know if you're familiar with Jubilee debates or anything like that, but there's a bunch of things where, it's 30 conservatives take on one liberal stuff, and you really just end up normalizing Nazis and people with just wild ideas. And I think that the best way to do it is to just do what Charlie Kirk is doing without the psychotic aspect of it and the bullshit and the propaganda. Just start bringing people to college campuses and engaging with these younger kids and allowing them to, have them come up and interact with people who can interact with them and meet them where they're at.
Unfortunately, these people have been around since the 60s. There was part of the president of the Nazi party who was, my brother was at UND in the 60s, and actually they let him talk, and it was pretty amazing. Everybody in the thing just got up and left on him. It was really pretty rewarding.
That's good, because and that's absolutely what needs to happen is we get really, especially in a social media day and age, we get really into this mindset of we want to see somebody get owned, or somebody get taken out in a debate or an argument, and it's satisfying to watch. But what we don't realize is that every time you give somebody a microphone with one of these really radical ideas, you're still legitimizing them. One of the great examples I think of this was Bill Nye when he debated who's the evolutionary or the creationist dude with the ark in Kentucky.
Oh, the Hobby Lobby guy.
Yeah. So he did a debate with this guy, and obviously, Bill Nye knows what he's talking about, and just decimated this guy in this debate. But the fact that he was on the stage with Bill Nye, who is a respected person in this field, legitimizes this person's completely radical, creationism ideals, and that is something that I think, Bill Nye obviously, I believe, had the best interest in mind. He thought that, hey, if I can present this rationally in an argumentative form, I'm going to convince people. But that's just unfortunately not the way it works. It's something that just platforms these people, and I'm guilty of it too. Obviously, I love watching people just get embarrassed in public. But unfortunately, yeah, we need to be very careful about how we go about doing that.
Do we have anybody else?
Do we need more South Park episodes?
Yes, yes.
From now on, we'll just do weekly South Park meetings.
Yeah.
Documentaries now. So.
I love it. Do we have any other questions? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
usually I just theater voice it.
See?
Since the theme of today is calling out misinformation, has there been any particular point, any particular story where you have done that and surprised yourself on breaking through somebody's cognitive dissonance?
I do have a few people who disagree with me, who follow me and engage with my content, and they're saying, you know, they've come forward and said that they don't always agree with what I say or how I present it or whatever it may be, but they do acknowledge that it's well researched and factual, and they can't argue with a lot of that, and so they stick around and they continue watching it. And I don't think I've had a few people, say that they've definitely changed their perspectives on certain issues or politically stepped back from the right because of it. And I hope that if there's a few people saying that, there's more people that haven't come out and told me about that. So I do think that it helps a little bit. However, and maybe I'm a bit of a pessimist, I think that those people are few and far between. Really, the point that I'm hoping to get at with my content is twofold. First is just shaming people like that into shutting the fuck up, right? They've gotten very, very comfortable with being loudly wrong about everything. And you're not going to change people like that's mind. 90% of the time they are entrenched in this and they're going to stick with it. But then that's fine. They can be wrong. They just need to be wrong in private. Keep it behind closed doors as they tell everybody else about all their stuff. And so that's the first thing is just we need to bring back bullying of bullies. And so that's. And again, I enjoy making them feel bad. If I know that they stayed up not sleeping for a night because of me, I felt like I've done my job, and that makes me feel like a superior person, and that's why I do it, right? But the other reason is that it gives me a platform to present common types of propaganda, tropes, misinformation, and it allows me to present that in a realistic, argumentative fashion that other people on the outside watching who may not be as politically engaged, may not have as much information, but aren't in a cult, are able to see and understand kind of how all of that information is laid out. And those are the people that I hope I have the biggest impact with, the people who, okay, the world's literally and figuratively on fire, and maybe I need to pay a little bit more attention, and they're out there trying to find that information. And I've had a lot of people who have said that they're not politically engaged, and they're trying to get more politically engaged and educated, and my delivery for them works. It keeps them engaged and interested and learning. So I think that that's really where it becomes important. Then the third aspect of that is obviously just if you're already you're politically on the left and you understand kind of like how you feel about things, but you get these kinds of talking points thrown at you a lot. You don't know how to respond to them. I hope that my content helps give you the information and rhetoric you need to address that when those things come up for you guys.
Perfect. Does anybody have anything else?
What resources do you have for your awesome insults? I wanted to hone myself.
Yeah.
So alliteration is always a piece of it. So I always kind of start with what's a decent insult and how many different ways can you say that, and then what words fit together with it. And I just spend a lot of time writing. I've got a whole list of a note in my phone with a list of insults, most of them for Trump, but for
Small words.
But yeah, no, that's something. I guess it's a lot of pacing out there. Like, nope, that insult doesn't sound quite right enough, and I just keep going on. So sorry, I don't have any great book resources. Yes, you need to feel pacing. Pacing is how I come up with everything. So.
Perfect. Anything else?
So you said you start on Wikipedia when you're doing research. I'm curious what the rest of your process is when you're calling out misinformation topics. Like, do you have a consistent process, or is it kind of all sorts of different strategies each time?
Yeah, no, there's no consistent process just because there's really no consistent database or information source that covers all of these topics. So, like, depending on what you're doing, you're going to go down different roads, which is why Wikipedia is really nice because it kind of gives you all that. After that, I do spend a lot of time on statistics websites, Statista and Gallup, polling websites and stuff like that. And I try to compile as much just raw data as I can. And this is something that I really, really recommend because you can make numbers say whatever you want them to say always, right? I always recommend if you're gonna go look up just data about any particular thing, to look it up in its raw form first and try to digest that just with what comes off the paper. If it doesn't agree with your confirmation bias, try to accept that and just go with that right off the bat, and then start trying to place that data into whatever context of what you're researching and go for. And I think that's just important in any situation. You should always try to find the rawest source of information on any topic because a lot of what you're going to read is going to be set right from the title all the way through to lead you to a specific point, and you're either going to agree with it or disagree with it right off the front side and then figure out why that is afterwards. And I think that's it's a really toxic way of learning about what's going on. So my process is, starting with Wikipedia usually, and then as raw of information as I can find statistically backed up to work up from there.
I don't need the mic. Considering the current political situation in Texas, New York, and California, do you think it's about time we take off the gloves and fight as dirty as they're fighting?
Absolutely. I've been saying that for a long, long time. Democrats, I obviously vote Democrat. I try to support Democratic candidates as much as I can, but I wouldn't call myself a Democrat. I call myself a progressive, and these are the policies that I want to see furthered. And usually the Democratic Party is as close to that as I can find to vote for that isn't, some make-believe, wishy-washy third candidate that is not going to help anything. I think that the reason that Democrats lose as much as they do is because they've, A, not taken off the gloves and played by the rules and the precedent that Republicans have set, but also that they never got out ahead of it. They're a very reactionary party. They have a lot of, they allow Republicans to set the narrative on everything. They allow them to build, like the fact that people believe, and Democrats have allowed them to do this, that Republicans are the party of fiscal responsibility and conservatism is fucking wild, right? It's absolutely wild. It's not backed up by any data in the real world. And Democrats just allow that to go, and then they just play catch up on it, and they're like, well, but the numbers and the stats, it's like, it's not the place for it. You need to come out here and you need to be ahead of it. You need to build your brand and market that separate from the Republicans. And we watched that with
That's just telling us the library's closing, but we don't need to pay attention.
We watched it, I think immigration in the last election was huge on this. Republicans have pushed further and further right on immigration year after year and demonizing the brown people because it's an easy other to pick on. And Democrats, instead of just going to the opposite, I mean, they accuse us of having open borders, which again is ridiculous and not true, but they should have owned it. Yeah, we should have more open borders. We need more people coming in. We should have better trade with our neighbors and things like that. And they should have owned it and went that way. And they did the opposite. They ran headlong, like, okay, you're going to be anti-immigration, we're going to be more anti-immigration. I was like, these people already have that candidate for that, and you just alienated 90% of the people who don't want that. They're not voting for Republicans because they don't want that. Stop trying to do Republican light and just pump the Overton window. So Yeah, I do think it's time to take the gloves off and play dirty because Republicans have been allowed to play whatever game they want, and we write them strongly worded letters occasionally, and that needs to stop. So yeah, I'd say if Texas wants to redistrict, let California, New York, and Illinois. I mean, not that Illinois can do much at this point because they're already really gerrymandered, but let Texas and New York, show them what's what. And I would be all for our state doing it, except we can't constitutionally do that here, which is a good thing and the way it should be.
Right.
I'm not advocating for gerrymandering, but as long as it's legal, nationally, and they're not going to play by those rules, I don't think that we should either, because we are in a fight for our very democracy and the soul of our country. And I mean, we can pat ourselves on the back that we played a good game, and as we get marched off to the gulags, or we can play their game. So.
All right, we have time for one more question. Over here. Oh.
I would love to have you as a ringtone on my phone. Just so you know, if you ever put that out there, you're going to be on my ringtone. I need you.
Yeah, I don't know what that would sound like. That'd be interesting.
Believe me.
I think Sarah had a question over here.
I do. So you do a ton of research, and I have a question. Because I've heard, and I don't research. Okay. I've heard that Project 2025 of the Heritage Foundation has been in the works by the Republican Party for over 40 years, and I'm wondering if you run across that. Because they're playing the long game. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We keep reacting, and we have nothing at all in a form of like, okay, we're organized, and this is how we're going to counter this. But we've had to have known that this was going on under the radar. And so have you found evidence for that?
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't even under the radar. I mean, how much time do you guys have? You all comfortable? Like, want to set in here? So back to Reagan ruining everything. This really, I mean, we can blame Nixon. I don't know how familiar you are with Nixon's Southern strategy and all of that, and taking, switching, it was kind of the finalization of the party switch. But Reagan was the first Heritage Foundation president. He was built by the Heritage Foundation, and they had their own Project 2025 for the 1980 election. It was called the Mandate for Leadership. Same thing. And this spelled out how you appoint certain conservative people to certain important positions to move policy behind the scenes, because we're Americans and we don't pay attention to anything except a presidential race every 4 years, and so that's what they started doing. And then it really focused on the court systems, Supreme Court and federal judges, getting as many conservative judges appointed across the country as possible. And this is really where they've set that up year after year after year. And it's been a Heritage Foundation. Like we're freaking out about Project 2025, and it's like you're starting at the last chapter of the book. Like this has been a very long ongoing thing, and unfortunately, nobody paid attention to it. They allowed them to do it. Back to Democrats never taking the gloves off and fighting fire with fire and bringing out these things on the front side, and now we're having to deal with the consequences of 50 years of policy that has been. It's not the Republican Party, it's the Heritage Foundation Party, and has been for 5 decades.
So in 1939, the Southern Republicans voted against an anti-lynching law.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that only white men should be running the government.
Yeah. It just makes me wonder, and I don't mean to be a pessimist, but are we ever going to be able to catch up?
Catch up? I don't know. I think things are going to get worse before they get better. No matter what, at this point, we are in for some dark days ahead. But the light at the end of the tunnel is history is pretty cyclical. It rhymes, repeats, whatever you want to say. And if you look at the last time Republicans controlled as much of the government as they did now was 1928. And you guys remember what happened in 1929 if you were history buffs? They lost control of the government for 70, 80 years, right? And we're in that same cycle. We're going to have a major economic downturn coming with this. We're going to have a lot of unrest coming. But unfortunately, Americans are really apathetic and complacent until it hurts too much to no longer be apathetic and complacent. And we're getting to that point. And so I think that we will see things get really dark, really painful, and unfortunately a lot of people are going to get hurt in the process. through bad policy and unfortunately probably political violence, as much as we don't want to see that. But that's when people are most ready for some radical change, and that radical change could come in the form of, a 2025 FDR and a 2028 FDR and a 2028 New Deal and all that stuff that gave us all of the things that we have today that we've taken for granted for far too long. So that's the hope I think that we can all hang on to, and we need to be fighting for that right now. No more of this center moderate candidacy stuff. I think that if we're going to take our shot, now's the time to take our shot, as to move that over to the window back to the left.
All right, guys, we do need to finish up. I do want to thank Jordan. We got you a small thank you gift for coming to speak to us today. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This is awesome, and I appreciate the fact that all of you guys are out here doing this. Like, this is really what's important, is people getting involved in their communities and engaging. It's what's been missing and why we're where we're at, and the fact that you guys are out here means that we do have hope to change. So you guys pat yourselves on the back. It's important work.
Thank you.